Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are looking at something that is deeply unsettling.
Mostly because of how easily it could happen to any of us.
Exactly. We are taking a really close look at excerpts from the psychological thriller A Perfectly Nice Family by Nicole Trope. But, we aren't just here to summarize a thriller.
Right, that's not what we do.
Our mission today is to deconstruct the actual anatomy of a scam. We are going to examine the specific psychological vulnerabilities that make us susceptible to letting dangerous strangers, people we don't know at all, into our most sacred safe spaces.
It is a critical topic. When we analyze the source material, it serves as a masterclass in how financial insecurity, combined with a genuine desire to just be a helpful person, can totally blind us to massive warning signs.
Yeah.
It really illustrates the mechanics of how empathy can be weaponized against the very person offering it.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start by establishing the baseline for our main character, Stephanie. She is a 36-year-old mother of 2 kids.
Luke, who is 16, and Avery, who is 12.
Right. And Stephanie is currently navigating this deeply complicated, messy divorce from her ex-husband, Christopher.
Who is a doctor.
A doctor who recently left her for his 33-year-old practice manager, Vanessa.
What's fascinating here is the sheer weight of Stephanie's cognitive load before the threat even arrives. During the divorce mediation, Stephanie fought aggressively to keep their large Art Deco-style home. And her motivation is entirely relatable.
She wanted to provide stability for her kids.
Exactly, during an incredibly turbulent time. But the reality of maintaining that house leaves her financially drowning. She's constantly checking her banking app, staring at a balance of under $300.
Which is terrifying.
It is. And she's having to ask Christopher every single month for his late child support payments.
So she is already in this state of constant low-level panic.
Precisely. And in psychology, we talk a lot about the scarcity mindset. When we are financially stressed, our cognitive load is essentially maxed out. Our brain literally shifts into survival mode.
Right, you can't think straight.
You prioritize short-term relief over long-term risk assessment. That desperation for stability actually creates her ultimate vulnerability.
Which brings us to the supposed lifeline. Stephanie's oldest friend and lawyer, Gail, comes to her with a proposition.
A very tempting one.
Gail suggests renting out the property's empty granny flat, and the proposed tenants are a family who allegedly just lost absolutely everything in a devastating bushfire.
And Gail heard about them through a partner at her law firm.
Right, a man named Jerry.
So think about this from the perspective of someone in a scarcity mindset. Have you ever made a rush decision because it solved an immediate pressing problem and it made you feel incredibly charitable at the exact same time?
It's a powerful mix.
It is an intoxicating combination.
So Stephanie agrees to rent the flat out for $350 a week.
Which is significantly below the market rate for her affluent suburb, by the way.
Way below. But here's the part that makes you just want to shout at the book. She skips the background check.
She skips the formal references, too.
She just accepts that they are a perfectly nice family in desperate need.
And this happens because her brain is seeking the path of least resistance. Running a background check takes time, money, mental energy she simply does not have right now.
Yeah, she's tapped out.
Plus, there is the halo effect of charity. Because she feels she's doing a good deed, her brain subconsciously assumes the recipients of that deed must be good people.
Wow.
She sees a way to ease her financial terror and be a savior all at once.
But the reality of the situation hits the moment the Kemp family actually arrives. So we have Jason, a rugged, handsome builder.
There's Cecilia, the mother, who seems instantly erratic.
And then there's Polly, the hostile 15-year-old daughter sporting blue streaks in her hair. Here's where it gets really interesting, because the vibe is entirely off from minute 1.
The immediate boundary crossing they engage in is textbook manipulative behavior.
I want to stop you right there, because this is where I really struggled as a reader. Cecilia goes to hand Stephanie an envelope of cash for the first month's rent, and then jokingly pulls it away like a schoolyard tease.
Saying, oops, too slow.
Yes. And the teenage daughter, Polly, looks at this perfectly nice granny flat and rudely calls it a shed, openly complaining about having to live there. I mean,
it's brazen.
If someone handed me cash and yanked it away or insulted my property on day 1, I feel like I would hand them their deposit back and tell them to leave immediately. Why doesn't Stephanie just kick them out?
From the outside, that feels like the obvious reaction. But you have to factor in the context we just discussed. First, She needs that $350 desperately.
Right.
Second, grifters rely heavily on social conditioning. We are conditioned to be polite, to avoid making a scene, and especially to make allowances for people who have experienced trauma. The Kemps do not act like grateful victims, and that is a deliberate tactic. It is early boundary testing. Cecilia is constantly knocking on Stephanie's glass kitchen door. She wants to borrow sugar, she needs laundry detergent, she complains about the water pressure in the shower.
Just constant chipping away.
Exactly. Grifters push the line slowly to see exactly what they can get away with and to gauge the assertiveness of their target. Think of it like hiring a contractor who gives you a fantastic rate.
Yeah.
On day one, they show up 20 minutes late. You don't say anything because you feel like you're getting a deal. On day two, they leave a mess in the driveway. By day 5, they are practically running your schedule, and you have let your boundaries erode completely because you justified the early small infractions.
That makes a lot of sense. You give an inch because of the trauma narrative, and they take a mile. But it escalates from annoying neighbor behavior to something genuinely chilling.
The garden scene.
Yes. There is a night where Stephanie and her son Luke are awake at 2 a.m. They look out the second-story window down into the garden, and bathed in the harsh glare of a sensor light, they see Polly aggressively slap her mother, Cecilia, right across the face.
A full-blown violent slap.
And how does Stephanie react to seeing that level of violence? She tries to research them. The next day, she attempts to Google the Kemp family. She searches Jason Kemp, Cecilia Kemp, Polly Kemp, and she finds absolutely zero online footprint.
Nothing at all.
No social media profiles, no local news articles about a family losing a home in a fire, nothing. So with explosive interpersonal violence and a complete lack of a digital footprint, why wouldn't she immediately call the police or serve an eviction notice?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where we have to unpack a psychological concept called cognitive dissonance.
Right, we hear that term a lot, but what does it actually mean in this scenario?
Cognitive dissonance is that deeply uncomfortable, almost painful psychological tension we feel when our beliefs or our actions directly contradict our reality. Stephanie has anchored her current survival on the belief that she helped a perfectly nice family and secured a steady stream of income. But her reality is that she is witnessing a violent teenager who doesn't seem to exist on the internet.
Those two things cannot coexist.
Exactly. To resolve that intense discomfort, her brain essentially lies to her. It rationalizes the violence as a symptom of the trauma from the fire. She tells herself that losing a home makes teenagers act out, and maybe they just aren't big on social media.
Wow.
It is easier for her brain to invent a sympathetic excuse than to admit she made a catastrophically dangerous mistake by letting unvetted strangers onto her property. She actively suppresses her own survival instincts.
Which gives the Kemps the exact opening they need, because they don't just stay isolated in the granny flat, they start infiltrating the main house.
Specifically targeting Stephanie's children.
I want to talk about Jason and 12-year-old Avery. Jason catches Avery hiding near the flat one afternoon, and he reaches out and tucks a strand of hair behind her ear.
Very inappropriate.
Super creepy. Later, when Stephanie is stuck at a job interview, Jason offers Avery a ride to her gymnastics class in his expensive blue truck, without asking Stephanie's permission. And during that ride, he looks her up and down and makes a deeply uncomfortable comment.
Telling Avery she's not a child and that kids grow up fast these days.
Yeah.
What we're looking at there is the mechanics of predatory grooming. We often think of grooming only in the context of physical abuse, but at its core, grooming is about isolation and control.
How does offering a ride to gymnastics achieve that?
Jason is creating a secret bond with a 12-year-old girl. By treating her like an adult and making her feel mature and seen in a way she isn't at home, he makes himself the cool, understanding adult. This begins to isolate Avery from her mother's protective instincts.
She even lies for him, right?
Yes, Avery lies to her older brother, claiming her mother approved the ride. Jason is actively driving a wedge into the family dynamic, testing to see if he can get the child to keep secrets from the parent.
It is incredibly unsettling to read. And meanwhile, the teenage daughter, Polly, is working her own angle on Stephanie's 16-year-old son, Luke.
She is relentless.
Avery wakes up in the middle of the night to get ice cream and catches Polly inside their main kitchen. Polly is braless, drinking orange juice straight from the carton, and Luke is just standing there laughing it off. Before long, Polly is eating breakfast in their kitchen every morning wearing Luke's sweatshirt.
She has completely invaded the inner sanctum of their home.
Totally.
This illustrates a vital point about how organized manipulation works. The Kemps are acting as a coordinated unit, deploying a multi-pronged threat. They aren't just one problematic tenant.
They all have a role.
Jason targets the mother's need for a handyman and a sympathetic ear. He conveniently appears right when her dishwasher breaks to help clean up the flooded floor, and he flirts with her on the patio over beers. Polly embeds herself with the teenage son's hormones and rebellion, and Jason targets the daughter's desire to feel mature.
They are essentially mapping the family.
Yes, they are mapping the schedules, the insecurities, and the structural vulnerabilities of the household. Think about how often we evaluate people based purely on their utility to us in a specific moment.
Jason fixes the dishwasher, so Stephanie's brain categorizes him as helpful.
Which totally blinds her to the fact that he is slowly isolating her daughter. We give dangerous passes to people who make our lives temporarily easier.
And then the pressure cooker completely explodes. Stephanie's plumbing backs up, flooding her laundry room with raw sewage.
A horrific, expensive mess.
She calls an emergency plumber, and he clears the pipe, but he reveals something shocking. This wasn't caused by tree roots or old age. Someone deliberately flushed a face cloth and massive clumps of cotton wool down the toilet.
Right.
And because of the pressure and the age of the clay pipes, they are now cracked. The plumber tells her it will cost over $10,000 to replace them.
We have to recognize that this is not an accident or a careless tenant mistake. This is deliberate psychological warfare.
Psychological warfare through plumbing.
Absolutely. The Kemps are deliberately draining Stephanie's resources to force a state of crisis. When a person is suddenly hit with a $10,000 bill they cannot pay, their critical thinking collapses entirely.
They return to that extreme scarcity mindset we discussed earlier.
Jason even attempts to compound this panic. Shortly after the plumbing incident, he points to her second-story window frames and tries to convince Stephanie they have severe termite rot, generously offering to fix it for the cost of materials.
So he creates a disaster and then positions himself as the only affordable savior.
Precisely. He is aiming to make her feel completely dependent on him, while simultaneously making her feel overwhelmed and incapable of managing the house she fought so hard to keep.
Stephanie's world is just collapsing at this point. And to make matters worse, the timing is suspiciously perfect. She gets a message from her ex-husband, Christopher.
Of course she does.
He casually announces that his mistress, Vanessa, is pregnant and moving into his apartment. And then he sends Stephanie a massive house insurance bill she cannot afford, and he formally offers to buy her out of the house.
He claims she clearly cannot afford the maintenance.
Right, so she should just sell her half to him. So what does this all mean? Stephanie starts putting the puzzle pieces together, and she thinks she has figured out the entire conspiracy.
From her perspective, she connects the sudden plumbing sabotage, the financial drain, and Christopher's perfectly timed offer to buy the house. In her mind, the sequence of events is far too perfect to be a coincidence. She assumes this is an orchestrated plot.
She calls Gail, her lawyer best friend who initially brought her the tenants, completely desperate for answers. But Gail reveals a piece of information that completely dismantles Stephanie's reality.
The truth about Jerry.
Remember Jerry, the law firm partner who supposedly vetted the Kemps? Gail confesses that Jerry was just fired for double billing clients to cover massive gambling debts. And worse, Jerry didn't actually recommend the Kemp family. Christopher did.
Let's walk through the terror of that realization. Her best friend lied to her by omission. Her ex-husband recommended these specific people.
It's all connected in her mind. Stephanie assumes Christopher hired these nightmare tenants specifically to drive her crazy, to bankrupt her with repair bills, and to force her to sell the house to him at a discount so he can start his brand new life with his pregnant girlfriend.
It is a horrifying betrayal.
But logically, it fit all the evidence she has.
Armed with this perceived truth, Stephanie marches down to the granny flat. She confronts Jason, but she plays it somewhat cool. She lies and tells him that her nephew from overseas needs the flat, so they have to break the lease and leave immediately.
And Jason puts on this incredible performance.
He cries, he manipulates her, he begs, saying they have nowhere to go and that they are victims. But Stephanie holds firm this time. Then she storms back into her house and fires off a furious, blistering text message to Christopher, telling him she knows exactly what he did.
That she knows he hired the Kemps to force her out.
And that she's calling the police.
But the true horror of the source material isn't Stephanie's theory about her ex-husband. The true horror is revealed in Christopher's immediate, confused reply to her angry text.
He writes back, "Who the hell are the Kemp family? What on earth are you talking about?"
That moment is so jarring.
Because the narrative perspective then shifts away from Stephanie down to the granny flat. Jason and Cecilia are alone. Cecilia is furious, pacing the room, telling Jason he totally screwed up by getting them kicked out so early.
And Jason snaps right back at her.
He says, "This whole charade is your project, Cecilia. I've done everything you told me to."
They aren't working for Christopher at all. Christopher merely passed along a passing recommendation he heard somewhere, likely from Jerry, before he was fired.
Exactly. The Kemps are operating on their own terrifying independent agenda. They are professional grifters, moving from host to host, completely detached from the family drama Stephanie thought was driving the situation.
This raises an important question. What happens when the threat isn't an elaborate personal vendetta from someone you know, but rather a family of predatory grifters who've simply chosen you as their next resource to drain?
It's terrifying.
The core takeaways from our analysis of this material are profound. First, we see the absolute danger of ignoring our intuition. Stephanie knew something was wrong from day one,
When the cash was pulled away.
when the shed comment was made. But she let social politeness and cognitive dissonance override her gut.
We prioritize being polite over being safe.
Continually. Second, we see how financial stress and cognitive load create massive blind spots. When we are desperate for a quick solution, our brain avoids the friction of doing due diligence.
We skip the background checks because we want to believe the problem is solved.
And finally, we have to confront the reality that some people out there view our compassion, our empathy, and our desire to help as nothing more than an open door to be exploited.
It is a stark reminder of how quickly a helpful gesture can unravel your entire life if you don't enforce strict boundaries. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We always appreciate taking these complex narratives and breaking down the real human behaviors driving them with you.
It has been a fascinating discussion. Analyzing these vulnerabilities is the first step in protecting ourselves against them.
And before you go today, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Think about the service workers, the new neighbors, or the casual acquaintances you have recently let into your home or your personal life. If you had to prove, right here and right now, that they are exactly who they claim to be, could you?